A sect of immortals floats on broken cliffs. A disciple below screams for the fifth elder. Four girls beg to know where he is going. That elder is Su, and he hunts for a student. Su hates that the crowd only loves his face. His system pings about a child of rare fate. The card shows dead parents and huge talent. He gets 2 disciples ever, so this one counts. Su drops from the sky to reach her first. A hurt girl lies in the dirt as her home burns. A thug looms over her and calls it a wedding. She whispers for her father and mother. The thug pins her arms and tears her dress. Su speaks up, and the thug demands a name. Su waits behind them with his sword out. The thug drops to his knees, coughing blood. Su tells her that her home and family are gone. He gives his name and offers the immortal path. She stalls, so he threatens to walk away. Su buries her in praise until she agrees. Her smile comes out sharper than he liked. Ching, his new disciple, bows to her master. The system pays 10 draws for the signing. The draws give cheap pills and weak poison. Su stares at the junk in his hands. The last prize names him a son of destiny. He calls up 2 swords for the ride home. Ching thanks him for promising her revenge. They reach the sect as master and student. Her face goes cold and she swears to kill Su. His sect is calling him in. Su gets called to the elders' meeting, and the order comes from the Grand Elder. He shouts that he is on the way and kicks off on his sword, leaving his first disciple grabbing at air. Mid-flight, he tells her to follow orders and wait on Bujin Peak till he returns. The girl yells for her master to come home early while he flies off into the sunset. She wonders why this man is nothing like the shameless tyrant of her past life. His voice carries back about breathing exercises in his desk, plus 1 bottle she must not touch. Her promise to obey hides a silent my ass. Su strolls through a crowd of swooning disciples. He opens his system panel and every stat still sits at 1 sad little star. The system says he must raise his disciples' cultivation before rewards unlock. A month earlier, a red window lit up his bedroom and handed him a system he never asked for. He was reading a novel under the covers, skipping the toilet for 30 more chapters. Turns out his swollen bladder is what shoved him out of his own world. Su asks the empty air whether a human being actually wrote that explanation. In bare print boxers, he yells that nobody transmigrates over a full bladder. The system changes the subject. Taking disciples earns draws and promotions double them. His new body is the Sword Sect's 5th elder, loaded with power and a pretty face. Su believed every word of that pitch and laughed out loud. Back in the present, he calls the system a liar and a scammer. He walks into the hall and a voice cheers that little Bebe is finally back. The Grand Elder yanks him into a hug, and Su wheezes that she is suffocating him. A cough cuts in. The second Elder asks her to mind the impression she gives. Sword in hand, she plants herself there with 0 patience left. The Grand Elder brags that she changed his diapers and has seen all of him already. That does it. The second Elder points a finger and tells her to look at herself. Exhibit 1 is the Sect's Grand Elder squashing the 5th Elder against her chest. Then she rounds on the 6th Elder, who acts more like a drunkard than an elder. The drunk blinks through a red face and manages 1 confused huh. He brags to Su about reaching the return to the void stage. Su answers with a flat tetch. 1 second later, his head is buried in cracked floor tiles. The second Elder stands over the wreck and notes their sect ranks 985th. The Grand Elder laughs that their elders all get along, which saves him from round 2. She claps the room back to order and turns to the real agenda. Su's eyes narrow the moment he hears the words recruitment conference. The intake runs once every 50 years, and the system swears it cannot see ahead. The organizer has to be powerful, which rules out the weakest elder in the room. The job also eats free time, and Su just promised his disciple a family revenge. Smooth talking is the last requirement, and Su shrivels into his chair. The second elder volunteers, sure that she alone can run the conference. Her real plan is stacking her own sword peak, then claiming the Grand Elder's seat. The Grand Elder answers that Su fits every requirement. He sprays blood. Back on Bujin Peak, a thin stream runs down and puddles on the floor. His disciple has the forbidden bottle open, face burning, drinking it anyway. A voice out of the dark asks who is there. She sprawls across the tiles, flushed and hugging the bottle while someone asks what she is doing. A drunk girl in a bath towel warns a giant rooster that she will scream. He clucks that nobody will hear. She screams across the courtyard anyway. The rooster hauls her limp body past a bush. A voice behind him says they seem close. Sue, her master, asks the bird what he thinks he is doing to his apprentice. Then Sue spots the whiskey bottle lying by her feet. It was brewed for sixth brother, his junior in the sect, and she drank it all. The rooster hides in a frilly apron. Sue keeps him only for the housework. He looks at his sleeping apprentice. Her parents were killed and she barely survived. Then he praises his own elegance and positive energy. A glowing figure spins over his palm. A book lies on the floorboards and the old wood creaks behind him. The apprentice opens one eye and asks her master why he is still alive. Sixth brother shoves the door open and asks why the room reeks of wine. Sue clamps a hand over her mouth while she whines at him not to touch her. One look at the half-dressed girl and sixth brother offers to come back in a minute. Sue stares into space with two completely dead eyes. A second later, Sue is chasing him across wet rooftops and screaming. Sixth brother howls that his promised whiskey is gone. Sue swears he touched nobody. Inside, the apprentice wakes with a hangover and complains about the noise. Her clothes are not the ones she passed out in. Maybe that devil dressed her. Standing up, she guesses it is the new sect uniform. It fits well and feels cool. Then she sees the bottle she stole. Her master will explode once he notices. She needs a plan, and the one she picks is worse than the theft. Out in the yard, she skips to the stone table and welcomes her master back. She lifts a steaming bowl and tells him to taste the soup she just made. In his imagination, she is a maid in frills, and he calls her really good. Behind the smile, she holds a small flask. Good stuff is waiting at the bottom. She kneels and ladles the first serving. Sue is busy admiring her legs. She catches him staring and asks what he is looking at. His mind is far from soup. The bowl slides across to him and he goes completely silent. He recognizes the crude salt that farmers feed to constipated pigs. He shoves the bowl at sixth brother. The apprentice asks why he goes first. Sue says they both drank his whiskey, so the chicken soup counts as payment. Sixth brother tips the bowl back. Sue wonders where that chicken came from. He tastes phoenix feathers from a bird cultivated to a fine level. Sue goes pale. Sue lunges and yells at him to stop. Sixth brother just asks for a new bottle. He keeps sipping with a calm blue glow. Then his stomach lets out a long growl. Sixth brother calls for his senior brother, tears up, and swears it was only a fart. 3 sect members stop at the Boojin Peak Stone, choking on a strange smell. A young disciple in a maid dress sprays air freshener through her cloth mask. She grumbles that the 6th elder leaves no corner clean, then finds a stained book. Her hands open it, and the cover reads, Sword Code, the sect's most guarded manual. Her master snatches it back. Sue, the sect's 5th elder, calls it his toilet paper. Sue flips the pages and tells her revenge needs better than an average technique. He walks off bragging that the hidden sword pavilion holds far stronger methods. His disciple wraps herself around his robe and begs to be taken to that pavilion. Sue coughs, plays the generous teacher, and promises her nothing less than the best. She hugs him tight, sparkles everywhere, and crowns him the greatest master alive. Sue leaps across the sect. Disciples mutter that his realm has been stuck far too long. The pavilion doors slide open, and a voice asks the senior brother what he needs. Sue answers that he came up here to collect one valuable book, nothing more. A woman in purple swings across a giant studded gate deep inside the pavilion. The 8th elder, his junior sister, cannot reach the realm he described 2 years ago. She lifts a massive blade and asks him to teach her how to cut stars with grass. Sue breaks into a sweat while disciples nearby call the 5th elder completely mad. He stalls, asking the junior sister whether she truly does not understand him. She bows and calls herself dumb, so Sue tells her she has disappointed him. Inside the library, she asks for pointers, and Sue flips the question back on her. She answers that the sword path is limitless, and one boundless blade breaks every law. 3 watching disciples burst into tears over an obliterator of constellations. Sue hides behind his palm and mumbles that the sky feels far too bright now. His fingers stay over his eyes, and he still has to keep selling the lie. A wall of blue light carves the air while he says man gets one life, grass one spring. Sue glows gold and declares that everything under heaven comes down to one sword. The 8th elder stands frozen while 3 grown men sob behind her shoulder. Her voice cuts through it. That, she says, is precisely the way of the sword. On the snowy roof, she leans close and asks if this is the path he comprehended. Sue stands over her, wishing for a world where every honest swordsman holds a blade. Light spears down into the courtyard as a sword answers the call from the heavens. She sits flushed on the library floor, admitting how impulsive she was with him. Her bare feet plant on the stone as her fingers lock around the hilt. Purple energy explodes around her the moment she shouts for her sword to come. Disciples explain the eighth elder reached the middle stage of void refinement. Sue hides between the shelves, hunting a technique that matches his disciples' talent. One spine reads the skills the protagonist must practice, so obviously he takes that one. His hand pulls the blue book down while the shelf beside it keeps stranger titles. Sue reads a page, sweating, and feels someone watching him inside the pavilion. He looks up. The ninth elder, the pavilion guard, reads nearby and asks what he wants. He decides the rare book is enough and slips out the door into the snow. The ninth elder stops at a red spine about a cold junior sister falling in love. Her whole face burns red, and Sue has no clue what he just walked away from. Ching sits with the sword code open and swears she will finally master it. Sue barges into the hall yelling about a great treasure he prepared for her. Ching spins around and tells him sweetly that she has been waiting all day. He lifts a stone slab titled, "The Skills a Protagonist Must Practice." Ching reads the warning that bad luck and a weak base will get her killed. Sue smacks her head with the slab and asks what he gains by hurting her. Ching hears that word, and one tear slides down her cheek. In her last life, he pinned her in a red waist and called it a rescue. Sue beamed there and praised her as a peerless furnace for his power. He strung her up by the wrists and carved the Tao bones out of her. Back in the room, Sue scolds her for not leaving the manual by the bed. Ching drops the sweet act and stares at him with open hatred. Sue reads that glare as a plea to teach her the book for revenge. He pats her head and tells her Bujin Peak counts as home now. She promises to train hard, then thinks about bashing him to death. Sue brags he skimmed every volume in the hidden pavilion within 1 hour. The page warns that anyone lacking revolutionary faith should give it up. Ching panics that he knows about her rebirth and decides to obey him. She asks if she is the protagonist, and Sue says everyone is their own. His palm drops onto her head while she stares up without moving. Sue tells her to relax and follow the flow of air inside her body. Ching yells that the training is way too hard while his hand holds her down. A junior sister of the sect walks up outside hoping for his advice. She finds Ching kneeling in front of him and screams at the pair. Sue calmly says he is opening a blocked area of his student's knowledge. He argues that a master touching a head is a blessing for long life. The junior sister gives up and admits she came here to thank him. She thanks him for the few sentences that got her into void refining, and Ching goes pale. The junior sister notices Ching's tight pants and asks what they are. Sue explains he sewed ice silk leggings so windy practice stops being awkward. Down on the floor, the junior sister demands a pair for herself. Sue hands over the pair he kept for himself and wipes his forehead. A black skirt lands on his head while Ching questions the whole technique. The junior sister struts in wearing only the leggings and loving them. Sue fires off a thumbs up while blood runs out of his nose. The demon Ching wants dead just got beaten by a pair of leggings. Sue pinches his bleeding nose, blames bad chi, and offers his junior sister a proper outfit. She turns up wearing it, calls the fit breezy, and holds out a flat wooden ruler. Sue asks if she knows the sword heart. It is the eye and the will of the blade. He lifts the ruler overhead and declares a blade carrier needs sharp faith. The junior sister claps and calls her brother strong. Sue beams with his eyes shut. He poses in a full 5-piece armor set, dedicating it to the cause of Jianzong. His face fills the panel. A stomp from the eldest sister would still be worth it. A spotlight drops over him, and he sits there crushed. He knew she was cheap. Nobody in the sect pays cash at the dumpling shop. Repair spells cover the bill. The junior sister leans close. Sue stares at her bare shoulder and mumbles about white skin. She asks what exactly is so big and white. Sue coughs and swears he meant soup dumplings. She wonders why the shop owner hands out crab roe filling for nothing. Sue grins with his chin in his hand. fairy pigs behind Jianfeng could fund the buns. An open book fills the frame. Somebody wrote that protagonists never do drills. His disciple, the girl plotting to kill him, scrawls furiously across the page. She screams that the big devil humiliated her. Her sword code will tear Sue apart. Sue strolls in and tells her to skip training and count the pigs on the back mountain. Her eyes snap wide. The back mountain is the ancestral grave of the Sect elders. He adds that it gets dark, so she should carry a torch. She answers, "Yes, master." The disciple smiles sweetly. One clumsy accident and her master repents on a cliff. Over in the Sect hall, the seniors are spread around the carpet for a meeting. The eldest sister, the one holding the purse, asks how his recruiting conference goes. The bookish sister, her own sibling, sweats over a novel and wants those pants. The eldest sister lifts a finger. Jianzong went broke when the Qingping sword was lost. Sue stands before the room and misses the days when the sword sect ruled. The junior sister lights up, eyes sparkling, completely thrilled by that speech. She reads it as admiration. The bookish sister is planning to steal that outfit. Sue argues the recruiting conference is exactly how Jianzong climbs back up. He roars that thousands could block him and he walks on. A tiny voice asks about money. The senior sister, who runs her own peak, says he burned the funds on chicken soup. She plants her huge sword and tells him to drop it. Sue asks what she suggests. The eldest sister tilts her head and asks whether she is really that confident. The senior sister crosses her legs and offers her thriving peak as her proof. Sue clasps his hands and smiles. Asked what is funny, he says happy things. A Sect brother drinks from his gourd and praises Sue for amazing alchemy skills. The senior sister repeats the word alchemy. Sue insists he never touched a furnace. The brother points at Jianfeng, where green smoke pours off the peak. What else is that? A disciple bursts into the hall and grabs Sue by the arm. The news is bad. The kid barely gets it out. The ancestral grave of Jianfeng is smoking. The second sister, one of his seniors, asks how he ignored his own peak. Sixth brother, an elder roped to a chair, lifts his gourd and sniffs. He calls it roast suckling pig, and the appetizers are calling him. The ropes hold nothing. He rockets out the door after the smell. Sue throws a hand up and screams at them not to burn his fairy pigs. Up on the cliff sits Ruo King, his own apprentice, torch in hand, greeting the ancestor. Disciples scatter around the flames and shout, "The grave is gone." Ruo King hides. A hand closes around a whole roast pig lying out in the grass. Sixth brother chews into it and suggests cumin. Sue watches his gold sprout wings. Sue stands in the fire while sixth brother eats on the grass. The sisters accuse him of farming pigs on the graves. The punishment has not started. Sue goes bloodless. His pig plan and his startup capital burn together. He jabs at the scorched grass and shouts that not one pig is left. The sister in red, another senior, asks where his apprentice Courage went. Behind a rock, King panics. Sure, the great elder wants to pin this on her. Sue lifts the half-eaten pig and cries about 50,000 tails gone. The second sister cuts him off. Burning that grave means 50 years facing the cliff. She blocks his path, while a voice argues that Sue never lit it. The eldest sister, who runs the sect, says he was teaching her when the grave went up. The second sister eyes whose clothes she wears. A hand tightens on the sword hilt. The second sister wants those two split so she gets her chance. The eldest sister flares gold and calls grave burning unforgivable. Sue goes to the cliff. The second sister turns back and warns that pushing this hard will break him. The eldest sister freezes on that word. The sect has to stay united, she tells herself. Ruo King keeps low while the crowd notes the fire started the moment Sue left. A finger jabs at Sue. A disciple lit it, and he still owns the blame. The sister in red offers to burn a grave too, just to get locked up with him. She is already picking baby names. The sisters crowd him and demand the name of the disciple who did it. Sue plays it cool. He has fleeced that apprentice for years, so he will not trade her for his own skin. Far below, Ruo King watches the fire and remembers the chicken soup that missed. She does not believe her master walks out of a burned ancestral grave. Ruo King laughs into her hand, sure she finally won. Her master just took the fall for her. Sue's boot crunches down on the scorched grass while embers are still popping. He plants himself under the giant stone tablet and pins the whole fire on a deity. The sisters throw it right back and remind him those were his own words. A system window offers him a fate dice and a huge power boost, and he taps confirm. Sue smirks and asks if nobody is curious why he torched his own ancestors. The junior sister yells at him to drop the act, but Sue just keeps walking. The pork leg sister ignores the whole argument and keeps chewing her snack. The grave cracks open in a blast of light, and Sue fears the system fooled him again. Swords tear out of the ground on their own, wrapped in green spirit flame. The second sister watches her star blade drift off, and that pork leg lifts too. His apprentice Chinger stares from behind the rock as every elder's weapon rises. Sue lifts one hand and recites an old geomancy verse about dragons and buried gold. One blade pushes through the ash and stands upright in the burnt dirt. The sisters go dead quiet, and the pork leg sister looks ready to cry. Sue tells the second sister he burned the graves to dig out the Ching Ping sword. He grins with gold eyes, already certain the crowd will buy every word. From behind, Sue thinks the system finally came through for once. The sisters flip instantly and decide one ruined grave is nothing next to that sword. Sparkles frame him while one sister bawls about how noble her senior brother is. Sue asks the second sister how many years his grave burning should cost him. The junior sister waves it off and says the sect can climb back to the top now. Chinger sits in the dirt and admits her clothes burned, so she stayed hidden. Sue puts a hand on her head and tells her his trust never moved. He pulls her up and says she is his apprentice no matter what she did. Chinger thinks back on her past life where this master was gentle too. Then she shuts that down and reminds herself the devil is only acting. The sisters corner him and ask why he never mentioned the buried treasure. The junior sister leans in with a wink, dying to know how he found it. Sue says spiritual energy failed him a century ago, yet he still trains every night. He mocks their training, then says his find will save them some face. Sue tells them everyone keeps secrets they can only taste alone. He calls this sword impossible to pull, and then his hand closes on the hilt. The great elder, the blonde in red, grabs the buried sword and brags that nothing stays stuck. She hauls it upward with both hands. The disciples behind her say even she has never freed it. She promises to smash the stone open instead. A woman with a wine gourd watches and grins. The gourd woman is thrilled with her own cleverness. Her whole face lights up over it. Nothing moves the blade. The great elder decides only a top realm master could ever draw it. The second elder, the sect's number 2, pictures that sword standing at the ancestral grave. Panicked disciples come sprinting with bad news. Someone torched the tombs on the sword peak. The second elder asks what the fuss is. A drunk elder is breathing fire and cannot be stopped. She screams at the sixth elder over the flames. Disciples follow along, expecting a bloodbath. Her finger jabs forward. She wants to know what the sixth elder thinks she is doing. The sixth elder answers that the tomb sits on perfect ground, so treasure has to be under it. The second elder lowers her hand. The grave burns anyway, so she claims a share of the loot. The great elder arrives and roars at both of them for torching their own ancestors' graves. She claims the burning was her own order. The sixth elder promises not to let her sister down. Fire swirls into a column. A voice calls for the big sword to come out of the ground. Pale shapes drift up out of the burning tomb. The onlookers stare and nobody finishes a sentence. The sixth elder marvels at all the ashes. The great elder hands both of them 50 years facing the cliff. Sue, our main guy, hears his apprentice start to explain. He notes the graves burned 2 days in. Sue asks whether his own apprentice will kill her master once her wings harden. She freezes. She is sure he is testing her, and she cannot work out how he knows the plan. Tears build in her eyes. The apprentice decides he has known about the plot from the start. Sue reaches toward her and she flinches, bracing for a beating. He only lifts her leg and tells her to stretch it out, calling her a silly apprentice. She stares at him, confused. Sue is busy admiring how detailed her feet look up close. Sue holds her ankle and studies the swollen, scraped skin under her heel. He wraps a white bandage around the foot and asks if it hurts. She yelps anyway. The apprentice calls herself worthless. People beat her to death last life, and she still wants this bit of kindness. Sue tells her the immortal world runs on schemes, and the weak in it count for nothing. He pats her head and warns her to stop acting pitiful in front of him. Sue promises the matter is not over. He will teach her properly when the chance comes. He sends her to sleep in the cottage and takes the pigsty for himself overnight. The apprentice swears nothing he does will break her, and that this life she kills him. Night comes. A low voice asks if she is ready and warns that this will be exhausting. Two hands close on a wooden handle. She admits it is her first time, and the voice tells her nobody starts out good. Sue, our fake sword genius, gets called out for a midnight lesson by his junior sister. He walks out under the moon in white robes with a blade strapped to his back. The junior sister swings her wooden stick until she sweats. He calls the form bland and asks for a real demo. Sue draws steel with a big flourish. His actual technique is campus Tai Chi at best. He plants the huge sword tip down and asks whether she memorized the lesson. Her hesitation worries him because she normally remembers every drill perfectly. Barefoot on the fence rail, she admits the whole thing left her head. He covers fast and tells her she already absorbed the essence. She cries about being stupid. Then she asks why he only pulls the Qingping sword at night and never in daylight. His eye goes wide. That random blade he grabbed was the Qingping sword. He spins around grinning. A flex this good cannot be wasted. He wraps a hand round the hilt and tugs, posing for his audience of one. The blade stays put. He explains that a treasure like this is never handed over easily. He grabs it with both arms and leans back, and the thing does not shift at all. He gives up and says the Qingping sword has its own mind and is currently asleep. She repeats the word asleep. His eye twitches and the night is about to get worse. A white crescent of sword aura cuts the clouds. She names it her sister's Sea of Clouds aura. Sue clamps a hand over her mouth and orders her into the pigsty until he calls. She asks whether there is anything shameful about what they were doing. He rebrands it as sword heart practice and tells her to hide her aura completely. She climbs into the haystack and politely asks when he plans to move his hand. He shoves her the rest of the way in, complaining that her hair still sticks out. The ninth sister walks in, the sibling behind that aura hunting for his underwear. She creeps closer under the moon, giggling about how fragrant her brother is. She decides the smell is just the fairy pig living in the sty. Then she catches a woman's scent, and it belongs to her own sister. Sue starts reciting poetry about the merciless road to immortality. She melts on the spot, certain that only she understands his loneliness. He says he can fool heaven but never her. She says he is sad enough to sing at pigs. Her eye narrows. Poetry aimed at a pigsty after midnight is deeply weird. Sue asks why she is on his peak at this hour. She answers that she came for the moon. Clouds swallow it, and he claims a hidden moon is the one worth loving. In his head, he decides she only sneaked over for the Qingping sword. She smiles and tells him the gates of Jianfeng are open to him anytime. He wonders why she never drew her blade and what she keeps scanning for. She flicks out a huge fluffy tail, furious that he spent his night with other women. A hand points down at fresh footprints pressed into the stone courtyard. Sue, our senior brother, tramples them flat and calls it footwork training. His junior sister is not buying it. She eyes a long stick lying by the fence. She leans in, sniffs the wood, and swears the smell is familiar to her. Sue waves it around and claims the ninth sister went home hours ago. The sister announces she wants to watch the moon and sleep on this haystack. Sue offers her the cottage up the peak, far comfier than damp straw. She ignores every word he says and jumps right onto the pile. Sue drops down beside her, and a muffled noise leaks out of the hay. His palm clamps shut instantly. He blames the sound on a happy sigh. The girl in the hay is another junior sister, sweating under his grip. Sue lies flat and decides the visitor already knows, which means he dies tonight. He turns bright red and wonders about flipping the whole plan around. Sue laughs and agrees that a brother should rest. She calls his acting awful and waits. She tips sideways and Sue clocks the angle and speed of the fall. Sue reaches out with one hand while she drops in toward him. Sue ends up cradling her, with no clue how she got into his arms. His hand rests flat against her bare skin under the moonlight. She keeps her eyes closed and whispers that his hands run hot. Both of them freeze and stare. The night is about to get much worse. A purple streak cuts across the sky above the peak. Sue knows exactly who that is. He says there are enough girls now for a mahjong table. The senior sister looks straight ahead and gives away nothing. The junior sister sits up with a wooden board and says her clothes need fixing. She slips behind the haystack and finds the girl he stashed there. Sue throws up a hand and howls with tears running down his face. Two pairs of eyes glow at each other inside the dark straw. The junior sister grabs the other one's chest to check her heart. The hidden sister argues that the fifth brother gave her those pants. The three of them squash together, and one says she found records of the Sect's greatest sword. The haystack is no longer the biggest secret on this peak. Sue's senior sister, the blonde in red, asks why he will not look at her. She thought the grave burning was over, so what did he wreck now? Up on the roof tiles, she hangs off him. That sword left the stone once already. They come down beside a gray boulder, and neither one says a word. She taps her chin. Sue would have pulled it at noon in front of a crowd. Low-key is not his style. Nobody buys the idea of that blade picking him. Two junior sisters crouch behind the wall. The older twin grinds her teeth. The blonde whispers in his ear, and Sue asks her to just say it out loud. Her red sleeve brushes his cheek and his eye goes wide. Half a month ago, Sect disciples vanished in the town below the mountain. She wants the recruiting trip as cover. Sue would rather mooch off his students. Light floods the courtyard under them. She is not really asking him. Out loud, Sue says yes, and the lie comes out perfectly smooth. The disciples are family, he says, so she hands him the whole mission. The older twin snaps about those two standing alone at the ancestral grave. Her sister asks if she has gone mad. The answer is a total ban on the fifth brother. Sue calls both sisters by name, then asks if his ashes fit in her family grave. She pins her sister down and warns her the fifth brother is dangerous. Sue offers to head down the mountain early and raise the recruiting funds. The younger twin blurts out that he can pull the Qingping sword. The blade stands in the rock. The blonde asks him to demonstrate right now. Sweat runs down his temple. Last time the weapon simply never reacted. One twin covers for him, saying the talking already drained his strength. Everyone has days when it will not work, she says. Sue puts on shades. His hand locks around the hilt. No man alive says no to that. In another courtyard, a hand with a fur cuff slaps a glowing book shut. A pink-haired disciple swears at her jade slate. She almost broke through. Slacking now means she will never grow strong enough to kill her master. Her eye opens. The blue in it goes flat and cold. Flowers bloom in a ring around her. She wonders if that was the legendary realm. Her filthy master will never reach no self, and she plans to top every sect competition in all 21 states. Sue, our main guy, stands frozen at the stone, with sweat running down his face. He figures the crowd is still thin. Backing out now costs less face than later. His junior sister decides he is only waiting for a bigger audience. She yells the news across the sect and tells everyone to drag more people over. The elders arrive with benches, and a vendor is already selling beer and melon seeds. Three junior sisters walk in arguing whether their brother can really pull that blade. Disciples ride flying swords in from every direction to grab a spot. The second senior sister, stuck serving punishment, asks why the whole peak is moving. She snaps that a grave-burning nobody has no right to touch the Qingping sword. Punishment or not, she flies off to watch him fail with her own eyes. The drunk elder calls it a friendly visit rather than an escape. Another elder squints and decides that dropping by the peak counts as polite. Back at the stone, the sisters ask Sue what the holdup is while the crowd shoves in. The drunk elder falls out of the sky and lands face first on the pavement. Someone mutters that the elders are hammered again, and nobody bothers to help. Sue finally grips the hilt, and another hand slams down on top of his. The second senior sister asks if every stray cat and dog gets to touch this sword. She argues the blade answers only to Mahayana power, so she cannot sit quiet. An elder agrees and suggests 50 years locked up for touching the treasure. The women loom over him promising 50 happy years, and Sue starts sweating again. Then his eye snaps open. His apprentice just broke through after training all night. The system feeds him nearly 8,000 times her cultivation for free. Sue grins with his eyes shut. Free power always puts him back in show-off mode. The crowd cheers for him to be bold and draw the treasure of the sword sect. The second senior sister sneers that he is all barking and no hands. She swears she will eat a whole pound of olives on the spot if he pulls it out. Sue rips the blade upward, and the shockwave blows the front row backward. The Qingping sword hangs above the split rock inside a ring of floating swords. His junior sister squeals that she always knew, and another one calls him handsome. The drunk elder gasps that the little dagger really is the Qingping sword. His apprentice leans on a wall, proud that her all-night training broke her through. She spots the light on the peak and wonders if the elders wrecked the treasure. Then she hears Sue announce that heaven made him and his sword spirit grows. Sue raises the blade overhead and calls on it to hold up the pillar of the sect. His apprentice sinks to her knees, asking who can tell her how to pay this back. The sisters ask Sue for his secret, and he tells them to stay away from emotion. A woman in your heart slows your sword, he explains, and the whole peak listens. Minutes later, couples are dumping each other all over the sect, and Sue has no clue what he just started. A sword sect crowd stands packed together in the dark, done with 50 years of facing the wall. One woman throws her hands up and yells at everyone to quit bickering and move. Behind a lattice window, a girl runs sword drills and swears she will get rid of him. Liar, a Mo family daughter, turns her back while a voice says the sect letters arrived. She walks out to a hand holding a fan of invitations from the top sects. The old man laughs that her sword bones open every sect in 21 states. One letter invites her family to the sword sect recruiting conference signed by Sue. Lear swears revenge on the master who dug out her sword bone, then tells her dad she is going. Up on the peak, Sue packs medicine bottles while Ching, his apprentice, asks if he is leaving. Ching wants to know why the sect never paid out for the sword she helped him find. The task list wants funds for the conference and news on the missing disciples. Ching asks who the old man is, and Sue says the old man is his own master. Ching turns up dragging a full load of gear, and Sue asks about her mother's house. She says she never had a home, and this pile is everything she owns. Sue drops a hand on her head and gives her a storage ring for the trip. He warns her not to wander off because the fairy pig's burned and he is broke now. The ring glows blue on her finger, and she wishes he could stay this decent forever. The two head down a forest path while Sue explains she needs a spirit spring first. Sue wants her to smile more because a straight face wins nobody over on the road. He leans down over Ching, and she freezes with both hands up. Sue asks his disciple to untie his belt, and she asks what he is planning. He grins behind one finger and promises her a big treasure. Ching braces for the worst. Sue pulls out 2 gourds of golden pills and calls it her beginner gift pack. Ching hugs 300 key training pills and thinks she never saw one in her past life. Her face goes red, and she asks which one of these masters is the real him. Sue watches his feedback numbers fall off a cliff onto a bar crawling at 2 kilobytes. Sue spits, and when Ching asks what is wrong, he blames a mouthful of ashes. The road runs straight between the trees toward a city gate up ahead. Sue says he last visited the city a month back, and Ching decides that explained nothing. Hawkers sell sect enrollment sheets for 50 cents, so Sue asks about the sword sect. A kid in the crowd waves the sword sect off as rubbish even a dog would refuse. Ching asks if the sect is really that hated, and Sue calls them big talkers. The kid says his sister still wants the 5th elder as her teacher. Sue throws an arm around the kid, asks his name, and reads him as no ordinary person. The kid stammers out his name, Mo, a son of the Mo house. Purple luck sits on him, so Sue marks him as important and sighs that he is a guy. Sue keeps smiling and calls this a test from the seniors, while Mo sweats beside him. Mo says he and his sister both think the sword sect gets underrated by everyone. Sue's grin goes wide as he leans in with one question. So you have a sister? Sue hands a token to Xiao Qiang, a local kid, and tells him to hold this same spot tomorrow. His apprentice reminds him they still need a room for the night, and Sue feels a bad omen. The kid bends double and thanks the senior for the gift. Sue teases his apprentice for looking jealous. A courtesan leans out and calls him Uncle Sue. He swears he only came to criticize the place, then tells her they sleep here tonight. A doorman blocks a customer at the gate and says his land does not serve women. A courtesan laughs and waves the swordswoman in because money is money. Xiaoqiang runs to his sister and blurts out who he just met on the street. He says the stranger was Elder Sue of the Sword Sect, and her eyes go wide. She grabs his collar and asks if he is sure because that elder is her one shot. The kid pushes her back and says the rich stranger is his own lucky break. His sister takes the pouch anyway and orders him to lead her straight to Sue. Inside, the courtesans greet Sue as a regular who has been away half a month. He pours gold into the palm of the hostess and asks about a disciple who vanished here. Sue sends his apprentice off to her own room and tells her to stay put there. The hostess leads him down the hall and asks if his ransom money will be enough. The Sword Sect boys turned up for the contest and never paid a single coin. Thick ropes hang in the next room, and a voice calls out for Sue by his elder rank. The strung-up disciples swear the agreed price was 1,000 tiles of gold. Su calls a few million tiles nothing and promises to visit once they are top earners. The hostess says her lord has bathed and wants a long talk with him all night. That lord turns out to be the master of the rival sect, and a voice invites him in. The sect master waits inside, sprawled in red silk with roses pinned in her hair. Su's sword lights up green in his hand, warning him that this woman is dangerous. He names the peony perfume and the charm trick, then asks what she wants from him. She expected that scent to break any cultivator, yet his face has not moved once. She stretches out and tells him he is the first man in her private room. Su tells her to drop the act, since he came to talk terms for his whole sect. She asks how he plans to repay it and whether he can even speak for the sect at all. Su lays his sword out flat. Yu, the pavilion boss, eyes the green hilt from her bed. She calls his sect too broke for a deal. Su offers 10 million tiles a year. Her eyes go wide. That number beats the whole red pavilion several times over. In another room, his apprentice runs into the ninth elder, a senior of the sect. He offers a lingju and a perfect foundation if she takes him as her master. She screws her eyes shut and refuses, since a swap like that splits the sect. The old man hands the bead over as her gift to Su, then warns her about him. She turns the glowing beads over and wonders why he chased her here. Su works a blackboard and sells an express report network across 21 states. He buries her doubts under differentiated tracks and core competitiveness. Yu says he managed to say nothing at all. He chalks the words hot search on the board, a ranking built from whatever people argue about most. Members steer it and enough gold drops any message onto the list. Yu asks him to slow down. The sword rests beside her while she asks herself why she never noticed this man. They walk to the archway. She counts the cost at tens of millions in gold. Su grips the hilt with both hands, eyes huge, and starts one more sentence. Yu smiles and asks if he fears she will just kill him. Su has nothing ready. Pink energy floods the room. Yu calls the fifth elder a bluffer, and he complains that demon girls never follow the script. In a wooden corridor, a sect sister walks with both hands on her hot cheeks. Her gold eye snaps open. Whatever she just felt stops her cold. She reads 2 auras at peak, refining the void, and one of them belongs to a master she knows. She bolts down the hall, certain her senior brother walked into trouble. At the pavilion, Su treats the threat as a joke. Yu stands at his shoulder. She lifts a single finger and promises it is all she needs to kill him. Su touches his chin and mentions an apprentice who is talented and hardworking. His system fires. The eldest apprentice broke through, and the payout runs near 2 million points. Yu asks him again if he is afraid. Su says a sect master cannot scare him. Her hand slams a teacup and cracks the wood beneath it. Su turns with a smile and tells her even a suzerain misses things. A blue vortex tears open and swallows both of them. Su lifts a red card that copies peak power for 5 minutes, then burns it. 5 minutes against a sect master and his clock is already running. Su stops holding back. A giant blade of light flares up behind him. The wave throws the Xingyu sect master back. She screams that he stands at peak harmony. Her mouth shuts fast. The new plan is to stay glued to this man and eat well later. Her tone flips into an apology and she calls herself his concubine. Su tells her flat that beauty tricks do not work on him. He does admit she built her whole sect to keep greedy men off her disciples. His face stays blank. Inside, that seduction attempt has him on full alert. The deal is on. She hands over a goldfish token that unlocks every Xingyu resource. The token belongs to him alone, not to his sword sect. In private, she wants to be called sister. Su accepts it and asks his brand new sister for 1,000,000 taels of gold. She wraps around his arm and agrees, which nearly cracks his self-control. He leaves her a parting gift and excuses himself with business waiting. Inside the wrapping is a long black sock and she treasures it. She watches the doorway and wonders if the Yunhai sword immortal is ever this lucky. Shan, his junior sister, marches in and demands to know what those two are. Shan pulls her golden sword and accuses the woman of seducing him and jailing disciples. The sect master tells her to put that blade away before she wrecks her brother's deal. One flick of a finger throws Shan backwards through her own sword light. She lands on one knee and wipes her mouth. Now she sees how big the gap is. The sect master calls her useless and asks why Su would want a spoiled girl. A cracked heart fills the frame while Sean repeats those words back to herself. She walks out of the hall alone. She will not believe he thinks of her that way. Tears run down her cheeks, and she decides to go ask him for the truth herself. Sean halts in a doorway, and the talk turns to her ninth master uncle. The story goes back centuries to a small girl and the blossoms he shook down for her. Sean sits on the floor with her sword. Her cold teacher admired him all along. Her jaw sets. She files the grudge away and hunts for a place to break through. Sue grins with his apprentice beside him. He invented that whole romance to hook her. The next job is pulling the locked-up disciples out of Xingyu hands. The rescued men kneel and thank him. Sue asks how they got caught in there. Their bidding starts at 5 years of service and climbs to 50. He leads them out under the yellow leaves, and one disciple mutters that he looks manly. A voice behind him asks whether Elder Sue is really standing there. A woman steps forward and introduces herself as Mo Lee of the Mo family in Mo City. Sue reads her red luck at once. She is the second apprentice he has been hunting, and that old fate is closing in again. A boy at Sue's table begs for a Sect slot and admits his sister outclasses him. The sister trips over her own boots and the full teapot leaves her hands. Hot tea splashes over the floor. Sue only asks Mo Lee if she burned herself. She leans in fast and offers paper to wipe the spill off his robe. What comes out with the paper is a dagger, and it goes for his chest. Sue's eyes drop to the blade before it reaches him. He pinches it dead between two fingers and credits an old finger technique. His disciple points out that he grabbed the blunt back of the blade. Sue blames his rotten luck, and Mo Lee insists the whole thing was an accident. Then his face goes tight. He recognizes whatever was smeared on that blade. The coating is an aphrodisiac. Sue drops back into flowers with a cartoon elephant on him. Sue asks himself why a self-defense dagger needs a love drug on it at all. He waves the mess off and tells Mo Lee to sit down. She thanks him sweetly. Sue mentions her brother said she loves the sword sect. Inside, she wants him tortured. Mo Lee recites a polished line about being born for the sword. Sue finds it too smooth. A palm slams the tea table hard enough to rattle the cups. Her brother is on his feet, screaming that the sword belongs to him alone. Mo Lee smacks her brother down and lifts a steaming vial as her gift. Sue catches her wrist and refuses the gift. She asks if he is really okay. His disciple glares at the pair and decides she has to shield Mo Lee. She cuts in and reminds her master that business comes first. Mo Lee and the disciple clasp hands. His disciple promises a rescue while Mo Lee promises a murder. Sue tells a story about a jealous man, then lands the punchline that she went sour. His disciple has no comeback. A voice calls the guests inside, and Sue's problems are only warming up. Across the hall, a rival recruiter brags about the students he signed in the city. Then someone spots the Sword Sect table and asks why they even bothered coming. The Sword Sect man snaps back, and the crowd mocks his students for folding fast. Two of them go nose to nose over a brothel story and who was seen there. Recruiting this year belongs to their fifth elder, the Sword Sect man claims. An old man says that elder spent 100 years stuck in the middle god stage. The rival recruiter calls the entire Sword Sect an embarrassment to his own. Finally, the Sword Sect man explodes and brags about their own elder Sue. One sword flattens the lot, he promises. Sue hears his own name and sweats through the smile. The hall keeps picking on Sue. He sits with his legs crossed, calm like none of it touches him. A rival elder named Luo says the calm is an act, and Sue plays it well. Luo repeats the brag. One sword to put him down. From a sect nobody rates. Every table turns to watch. A guest says a real fight would make the night worth it. Luo tells Sue to use any trick he likes, so nobody calls it big bullying small. In his head, Sue curses his own disciple, who cannot act tough, and still opened his mouth. Purple light tears across the hall. His ninth junior sister asks what Wuhuake even is. A shocked voice calls her the Cloud Sea Sword Immortal. Stunned, she reached void refining. Her purple blade smashes into golden light, and the clash lights the whole room. The beam rips past Sue's face close enough to move his hair. Two students scream. Sue does not flinch. He blinks once and keeps sitting like nothing happened. The ninth sister smiles and says she nearly hit her own senior brother. One student groans that it missed. Sue just decides a draft went past. She leans on his chest with her eyes shut, sure he will understand her feelings one day. Then she swings again. Nobody insults him while she is standing in that room. Luo goes pale. She is only mid-virtual cultivation and already pulls on heaven and earth. A hand settles on the back of a head, and the taunting goes soft. Was the calm act forced on him? Luo keeps yelling. Sue hides behind a woman and will not answer the challenge himself. Sue covers his face with one hand. Luo has worked out that she cleared the heart demon tribulation. Purple fire wraps around the ninth sister. She asks one final time what Wu Huake actually is. Luo will not back down. A sect with the lowest intake here has no right to question his. He calls her a girl he was going easy on, then calls out his purple gold hammer. Sue finally stands and waves the ninth sister off. Luo asked what the sword sect is. The sword sect does what Wu Huakui will not, he says, and takes the students Wu Huakui rejects. His fingers close around a hilt. The blade he pulls is called Qing Ping. Green light floods the hall. Sue tells Luo to go ahead and do whatever he likes. Then Sue shouts it straight at his face. This is the sword sect and that blade has been gone a long time. His disciple covers her mouth while Mo Li licks the flat of a dagger and grins. Sue holds Qingping out, and the three challengers back off the floorboards. The beaten crowd shuffles into the daylight, told to hurry home to the South Wind Country. Mo Li keeps licking the blade. Her brother asks if she would rather have salty rocks. Her brother cackles and asks how she plans to spar after eating an aphrodisiac. A fist goes up and Sue grins. The missing disciple is back, and the recruiting money is safe. Sue pats her brother on the head and offers to take him on as a student. Sue studies Mo Li's flushed face and asks why she seems wrong to him. Mo Li burns bright red and hugs her own arms while Sue tells her to calm down. She folds onto the floor. That dagger was coated, and the drug has no antidote. Her voice comes out small. She calls Sue master, and his disciple hears every word. His disciple decides Mo Li must never be allowed to take Sue as her teacher. Sue asks what is wrong with her, and her brother admits the dagger was drugged. On the boards, Mo Li lies flushed and gasping, while Sue hunts for another explanation. Sue carries her out and tells his disciple to clean up with the ninth sister. He leaps across the rooftops toward the red pavilion while she stares after him. His disciple stands there shaking. Mo Li is drugged, and Sue just walked her into a brothel lane. The ninth sister turns up beside her, and neither of them looks happy about it. Sue walks in with Mo Li in his arms and demands to see the suzerain right now. A hostess points him toward the attic, and Sue takes the stairs without slowing. Upstairs, the red pavilion mistress, a senior he calls sister, teases him about the fight. Sue lays Mo Li on the bed and asks whether any antidote is kept in this place. The mistress presses a hand to Mo Li's forehead, and her whole face changes. She asks if this is the girl carrying the three-body sword back in Mo City. Sue says the drug only stirs the nerves and wants to know how it gets broken. He tips his head back and asks if the most primitive method is the only way. Mo Li climbs onto him, and Sue tells himself this is only about saving a life. The mistress lifts one finger. Other options exist besides that primitive trick. She holds up a small vial. Left alone, the drug will chew through the meridians. Sue sweats and asks whether fighting poison with poison could wreck the whole plan. She fans herself. A cold jade pool is already filled and waiting upstairs. Sue beams and thanks her, then turns back toward Mo Li with the good news. A wet hand slides toward him. He asks why her fingers are soaked like that. Mo Li stares up at him, cheeks scarlet and well past listening. She yanks his head down and kisses him, and Sue can only wonder if that was her first. The mistress praises Sue for eating the same drug as Mo Li and keeping his head. Mo Li lies limp on the couch while Sue kneels red-faced and begs for a new subject. The mistress giggles and promises to walk him to the cold pool right now. Red drapes ring a steaming jade pool, and the mistress leads him across the grass. Sue carries Mo Li to the water. The mistress swears nobody will bother them. She winks, lifts one finger, and tells him to toss the girl in gently. Sue walks off with Mo Li clinging to him while the mistress watches from behind. Pink hearts pop around them. Mo Li grabs his robe and says she cannot wait. She stares up with bare shoulders and a scarlet face far past any reasoning. Sue leaps overhead, and Mo Li's eyes blow wide as the water swallows her. He flips upside down and dives in after her, yelling a battle cry the whole way. Su hangs on the pool edge and grins, proud that the cold jade water did nothing. He brags about his talented disciple, and Mo Li catches one word of it. Mo Li remembers her last life, where Su killed that disciple for a sword bone. Her hand presses his chest while she swears everyone who loves him goes down too. The mistress teases the ninth elder, who only asks where her senior brother went. The mistress says Su walked in drugged with a woman, and his disciple denies it. His disciple jabs a finger forward while the mistress asks one flat question back. The mistress leans closer and asks if she is sure. His disciple sweats and stalls. The ninth elder stands. The mistress offers to guide the pair straight there. At the jade pool, Su tells Mo Li to get under the water while she only stares. Su folds his arms and asks what that hungry look in her eyes is meant to do. His disciple bursts through the drapes with the ninth elder and demands answers. Su says he came here to save a life and tells them to go ask Mo Li herself. The ninth elder says she is fine leaving alone, and Su shrugs it off as usual. Su tells Mo Li the drug still holds, so she should soak in there a while longer. He teases his disciple for barging in jealous, then sends her to mind Mo Li. Indoors, the mistress jokes that her brother is fine, but she barely held back. Su wipes his face and asks about the gossip channel. She says all is ready. She holds up a cheap spirit mirror, and Su plans to sell gossip through it. Su grabs the mirror and asks for it before she can finish her sales pitch. The mistress reads on with a twitching eye, then curses his name and orders him out. Outside, she warns Su that his enemies are many, and he bets none of them move yet. The Mo family estate sits quiet behind its stone gate in Mo City. Inside, the patriarch, Mo Li's father, hears that Su drew the Qingping sword. The attendant adds that Su carried the young lady out after their meal. Su took her to the red pavilion, and the old man's jaw comes unhinged. He crushes the paper in his fist and roars for horses to surround the place. Down in the street, the Mo men scream at Su to hand their miss back. Upstairs, the mistress leans on the rail and asks why he refuses to panic. Su plans hired readers instead, so his gossip sells across 21 states. The mistress counts the mob below and says the patriarch leads it himself. Su suspects somebody pushed the family into this, and he grins at the chance. A messenger runs in and says the Mo head demands to see Elder Su in person. He admits the yard was too loud to catch it all, but the cursing was clear. Su rises and says that since the patriarch came for him, they should go down. At the gate, the patriarch grips a broad blade and swears his family fears nothing. The pavilion doors swing open and every head turns toward the top step. Mo Li's brother stands there in bandages, already calling Su his brother-in-law. His father asks what happened to his sister and why the boy is standing here. The patriarch knocks him flat for leaving her alone, and the kid protests hard. The mistress asks why the Mo family marched onto Xingyu ground over this. The patriarch calls Su a shameless demon, so Su waves her back and takes over. A young man in the crowd shouts that Su wrecks businesses and bullies anyone. The rest trade rumors about the smashed tea house and who carried Mo Li home. The crowd wants an answer now, and Su still has not opened his mouth once. The patriarch throws his blade up and says his daughter was dragged in there. Su stands still while the man demands to hear exactly what he did to her. The patriarch licks his blade, and Su decides the habit runs in the family. Then Mo Li walks out beside him, barely dressed, and calls over to her dad. Mo Li thanks Su for saving her, while her father, Patriarch Mo, checks her over. She says Su spotted the poison and rushed her to the Red Pavilion cure. The crowd flips. Su is clean, so his accuser slipped her that love potion. Her father sends her off to get dressed before she catches a cold. The old man grabs Su's hands and starts a tale from outside the 21 states. A figure in white walks the steps while he names the calamity of that age. 800 sword immortals filled the sky, and none of them retreated. Su says the sect later faded away, and its people were always bad with words. With a blade in hand, though, they never lost an argument about what is right. The system pings. His disciple caught that sword code, worth 50 million experience. Patriarch Mo apologizes for judging him so badly. Su blames worried parenting. Then Su admits he has one shameless request, and the old man says name it. He wants a recruitment speech at the Mo estate with 10 eggs per attendee. Patriarch Mo agrees on the spot and bumps the prize up to 20 eggs. Someone warns that the eggs will cost a fortune. He waves it off. Later, Mo Li turns to the doorway and tells Miss Xiao to stop lurking. Xiao, his disciple, walks in while Mo Li holds up two outfits to compare. Xiao asks who all this is for. Mo Li says whoever ends up looking. Mo Li leans back, drying her leg, and asks why Xiao is so tense. Xiao snaps that she knows nothing about Elder Su. Mo Li laughs that she does. Mo Li needles her for guarding her master's private life so hard. Xiao offers a blue jar, a return pill from her master, and tells her to leave. The pot sits on the floor as Xiao walks off. Mo Li remembers her last life. Mo Li lifts it smiling and swears her master ends up under her feet forever. At a tavern, Jianzhong people crowd Su with stacks of new registrations. One of them says the count is still climbing and nobody expected that. Su waves his disciple over to sit with her teacher and see what he brought. She stomps up with puffed cheeks. Su pinches his nose and blames the vinegar. He finds no fever on her forehead and asks if she got robbed. Then she asks straight out whether Mo Li is getting taken as an apprentice. Mo Li has monstrous talent and a patriarch father. Xiao calls herself plain. Su catches her hand mid-sulk and she squawks at him to explain himself. He lifts it up and asks why her face went that red and whether she is jealous. She huffs that his students are not her business. Su tells her to act like a senior sister. Su pats her head and drags her out shopping since she made him rich. The sun drops over the street while he promises her new clothes. The girl he saved just swore to own him. The moon hangs over the town and the night market below is still awake. Su, our main guy, says this city is busy as ever. His new disciple thinks he knows it well. He denies it, claims he has never been here, and tells her to hold his hand. One candied haul later, he asks how it tastes. She decides getting close comes before killing him. They stop at a fortune teller's stall where the sign promises a free reading if it fails. The old man behind the table offers to read them both, then calls this pair strange. Su asks what method he uses. The old man says their fates are tangled. One of them dies at the other's hands and he cannot say which one. She freezes mid-bite. Su drags the old man aside since a street reader just called her plan out loud. Arm over his shoulder, Su offers 10 spirit stones per recruit cashed at his sect. He crouches down and tells the old man to sign up every fortune teller he knows. Thumbs up. Every customer who wants a reading gets funneled to the sect instead. She asks what that was about. Su says nothing happened and hurries her onward. The clothing hall staff already have orders from their sect master to serve him. Su tells the clerk to dress his disciple inside out and pick the expensive pieces. The clerk blocks a doorway. Su asks what room is closed to him. Women only, she says. Su starts ordering undergarments and guessing her size. She shoves him outside. Out she comes in white and gold silk. Su claps and asks who is shining like that. She's grinning now. Su calls it a bit much while the clerk packs everything up. The 9th elder of the sect turns up in purple and greets her as junior sister. The disciple is sure she is trailing Su. The elder leaves with her parcel. Su tells his disciple to change and head home. Back in her room, she sits buried in outfits she cannot work out how to wear. The price stops her for a second. It is all paid for, so she tries one on. Terrible timing. Su walks in talking about scarf sales while she stands half-dressed. A bowl cracks off the doorframe. Su backs out and says he speaks at the Mo family tomorrow. Next morning, the Mo estate has a queue down the street and carts of eggs at the gate. Inside, the family works out that 100,000 eggs are gone. The Mo patriarch says his family keeps its word, so the eggs keep flowing. Su steps outside and the crowd runs on forever. He decides to save his voice. The front rows are crushed. One woman accuses a man of shoving, and he says she is crying harassment. On the platform, the Mo elder hands the stage to the 5th elder of the sect. Nobody knows that name. One man remembers a swordsman who put holes in the sky. Another asks about the eggs. The Mo elder waves him forward, and Su walks up in his white robe. Su lifts 2 fingers into a sign while the attendant pulls the white cloth away. Every head in the square tips back as the crane climbs and the shouting dies out. He has not said a word yet, and the crowd is already his. If you made it this far, subscribe and drop a comment. See you in the next one.